Okay, welcome back everyone. Now I'm delighted to welcome and introduce Ger Snikers, who will be given the first official keynote speech at a European Establishment Statistics workshop, providing us with his reflections on business data collection. And it is fitting that someone like Ger is going to be doing this. While many, if not all of us here know of Ger's work, just to give a very brief overview and info, Gur is a leading expert in business survey methodology, working as a senior methodologist and advisor in business data collection at Statistics Netherlands, and he was also a professor at Utrecht University. He's the lead author of the 2013 textbook Designing and Conducting Business Surveys, and he was editor-in-chief of the 2023 Advances in Business Statistics, Methods and Data Collection, to name just two examples of his work, of which I've got great insight. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Ger now, who has about 30 minutes to provide us with his reflections on business data collection, before we'll then have 5 minutes at about 11:50 for a quick question and answer session. So Ger.
Okay, thank you so much, Liam. And thank you so much for having me, for being on the program to reflect on business data collection, my personal provocative insights. So I'm looking also forward to your reactions. The presentation is not on the screen. So I'm looking forward also to your reflections on my reflections. Here we are. Okay. And before I start, I'd like to thank Leanne, who's here in the audience, who helped me reflecting, and also to Moitza Bavdas, who helped me with reflections when I had my first ideas about this for ISIS last year, when I presented also reflections on business data collection. Yeah, okay. Okay, this is better. So a short introduction about me. I started working for Stats Netherlands in 1987 on the 1st of January. So that's already a long time ago. And then in 92, I started the questionnaire pretest lab at Stats Netherlands in Heerlen, together with a colleague. And we started basically with the pretesting of social survey questionnaires. And then in 1996, I did my first pretest with a business survey questionnaire. So that was my first experience with businesses as respondents, let's say. My background is in social science. And then from 2004 onwards, my focus is on business data collection. And here is an overview of what that includes. And there are some big projects that I was involved in from 2005 to 2010. We developed electronic questionnaires for business surveys. So we moved from paper to the web. From in 2015 to 18, we did the development of a questionnaire and the survey on finances for large enterprises. And I did many pretest study in all those years. So that was the basic for my insight. And when I look back on all those years, what surprised me, let's say the last 2 years, is that there is a constant in these years. And that's, I hear the same messages from NSIs and from businesses in all these years. And I started asking myself, why is that? Why do I hear the same messages over and over again from NSIs and from businesses? So I thought maybe we do not seem to solve our problems in a fundamental way. There are a few exceptions. For instance, I think that Portugal has a leading way to move forward. So I started asking myself, are we doing something wrong? And what do we know about businesses when they complete a questionnaire, when they participate in the survey? So I will present, first of all, what I have heard from NSIs in all these years. engineers, what I've heard from businesses, and then I will go over a few topics on what we know and implications for our designs. And then finally come to conclusion. So what is the NSI perspective? We've had also some insights in these perspectives this morning in the first session. So we have to deal with declining response rates and business engagement. We have to deal with response burden. We need new data, more details, faster, more variables, and still get good data, which means that from an individual business, we need to get complete, correct data in time. Then we are satisfied. And on top of that, we also have to deal with budget cuts. Every time again, I hear that, well, we have to deal with these issues, but we don't have the money to look into it. So these are really tough constraints, I would say. And then when you look at the solutions, they are often rooted in our own systems, in our own perspective. And when I go over papers, then the solutions don't really solve the issue, they still remain. So what our perspective is that we need the data according to our variable definitions, our unit definitions, our own time schedule. When we need the data for publication, then the businesses have to provide within our own systems and procedures. And what is very striking to me is that our systems are still siloed. So we have the various statistics have their own procedures, their own systems, their own processes, without connecting between the various systems. So we still have the siloed statistics, and they are developed ages ago. Some may go back to, let's say, after the Second World War that they have been developed. We are also afraid of structural breaks in time series. That's an argument that I hear all the time within Stats Netherlands. If we make changes, what will it do to our time series? And if we change our systems, then it should be done cost efficiently. So that has to do with the budget cuts, but we don't want to put money into it, or we cannot put money into it. So that's our perspective. So what do we do to solve the problems of non-response, for instance? As for the communication strategy, we send out advance letters or emails, and then when we don't get the response, we send out reminders and even more reminders. Maybe here is an example of a business that I interviewed 2 weeks ago for the International Trade Statistics. And they said, well, I complete the questionnaire every month. That's not an issue. I'm willing to do that. I'm committed to do that. But could I please have some more days? I have to complete the questionnaire before the 10th of each month, but that's too soon for me. And he does that every month over and over again. And then he says, well, you start sending letters to me, a reminder letter. But still, you know that I will respond in the end. And still they get the reminder letter. So that's our solution with regard to getting survey participation, is sending reminder letters. So we send out the reminder letters based on our data, our deadlines, when we need the data. We should, and also for incentivizing, what I hear is we should give them something back without knowing what that is or whether businesses are interested in that. Also, it said that it's mandatory by law, so they have to do it no matter what. There's no discussion. And so what we do is we punish businesses for not cooperating in the end, even though they are committed. That's also what I've heard from businesses saying, well, I complete the questionnaire every month again and again. And then sometimes I get a letter from you that when I don't respond within the next 2 days, I will get fined. I'm a good respondent. How could you send this to me? And then for the questionnaires, they are based, like I said, on our variables and our definitions. When you look at the electronic questionnaires, you can still see the old paper forms. So it's a lot of, let's say, fill-in boxes with a lot of text and a lot of information there. And the title of the questionnaire usually is the title of the statistics. So it's not a proper name for a questionnaire, I would say. Here is an example of the production statistics or the structural business survey statistic questionnaire from the Netherlands. This one is a paper questionnaire that we transformed into an electronic questionnaire some 20 years ago. And here you can see the very long instructions, and the title production statistics doesn't mean anything to businesses. What we heard, from instance, from businesses in the service industry, they said, well, I don't produce anything. I don't produce goods. So why is this meant for me? This is what it looks like on the screen. And here again, we have the long instructions. So if you press the question mark button, then the instructions will show. And again, it's long instructions. And what we also know is that people don't press this button, and they don't even see it. So we hide the instructions. So basically, my conclusion is what we do is that we apply social survey methods to business surveys. And that means that we design all our business surveys independently of each other, even though we know that there is a relation between the various surveys. But the designs are done independently. And also, there is no relationship with our business respondent. We design the questionnaire from within our own organization, and then we throw that over the wall to the businesses. We impose that on them, and they have to adapt to our roles. So we put the burden, to use that word, Joe, or the cost on them. And our solutions is, well, we do more of the same. We stick within our framework, and we do not go beyond our borders. And we do not adapt our systems unless we have to. For instance, with COVID, then I saw that a number of NSIs moved from paper to electronic questionnaires because they were forced to by forces outside of the organization. We also assume rational behavior. And ELM means the elaborate likelihood model. It says that people also prefer a heuristic approach instead of rational behavior. But still, we assume that people behave rationally. So if we say we should give them some more information, we assume that people read that, but they don't. The one thing that we do, which is a good thing, I would say, is that we tailor our designs. For instance, by doing pre-testing, we study how businesses complete our questionnaires, how we can fine-tune our design to their context, to their conditions. That's tailoring, but still, it's within our own framework. It's still our own perspective that we put on businesses, and yeah, like I said, we fine-tune a little bit, and then we hope that it works. But still, the question is, do we apply what we know? And do we use the data about our business respondents, the data that we already have in our own systems, and maybe collect paradata with the questionnaires? The answer to that question is we could do better here, I think. So that's the NSI perspective. Now, the business perspective. What do we know about businesses? Well, like I said, my first project with business survey questionnaires was in 1996. It was on trade and transportation. There were two separate questionnaires from the structural business survey, and they had to be combined because of a major reorganization of Stats Netherlands. We didn't do interviews with businesses at the time, but we had focus groups with our fieldwork staff. We don't have that anymore, but they went to businesses to help them, to assist them with the completion of questionnaires. So they had really good insights in what was going on within businesses. And when I look back and read the report that I wrote 30 years ago, I saw the same things that I still see today. There is a mismatch between the data that we ask for in the questionnaire and the data that they have in their own systems. We ask for a lot of details that are irrelevant for businesses, especially for smaller businesses. There was a discussion on the period. Is it the calendar year or the fiscal year that we ask for in the questionnaire? And still there were, on the questionnaire, there were these many long instructions. And the people from the field staff, they said, well, they don't read all those instructions. They just use their own data and their own definitions as they have it in their own systems. In 2013, we published this book, and in this book, there is a long list of reactions from businesses. And I would say the list still applies today. In 2023, we did a business perspective study contracted out by Stats Netherlands. And again, we heard the same messages from businesses. Who are you? Who is Stats Netherlands? Are you government? Can I trust you? Is this mandatory? Which surprised me in a way that businesses don't know that, but they do. You tell me it's a sample. Why then do you always send this to me and why not to my neighbor? So they don't understand the concept of sampling, let's say. What's in it for me? This is not relevant for me, this questionnaire. I don't get anything in return. I'd like to know upfront what I need to do so I get prepared. And also retrieving the required data is very time consuming. This could be automated. I have the data in my systems. Why not get it there directly? Or why not get it from the tax office? I already reported that to the tax office. And why do I need to report it again to you? Go to the tax office and get it there. These are things that we already touched on this morning in the first session. So this is still the same messages that I heard and still hear from businesses again and again and again. And then also, when you look at the businesses, they have their legal context. They have to do with more reporting from other laws that they have to do or comply with. And we only think from our own law, I would say, without taking that into account. And also they have to report to other stakeholders. For instance, I've been studying farmers and they also have to report their data on their crops and the use of plant production products to their clients, to their stakeholders. The stakeholders, for instance, about potatoes, they want to know how the potatoes were grown and what kind of plant production products were used. So they have to report that to their stakeholders as well, these farmers. And they say, well, I reported that already to them. Maybe you can collaborate with these companies and get the data there. So what do we know? So now we have the picture for the NSI perspective and the business perspective. So what do we know? I will go over a number of points, what we know, and then also discuss what it means for our designs if we take that into account. So first of all, about the business population and sampling, we know that the business population is dynamic. It's skewed. We have many small businesses and very few very large enterprises, but these large enterprises are very important for us. So they are crucial in our statistics, and that's why they are included or sampled, if you want, in all of our surveys. And we also have data from previous surveys for these multi-survey businesses, and we have secondary data sources that we could use. So the consequences from these characteristics of the business population is that we need to update our business register time and time again. And at Stats Netherlands, we have a dedicated team working on that and also doing profiling. So Do we still have the same business with the same size class and the same NACE and the correct NACE code? But still, when we do a sample, we should check for eligibility before we go into the field and see whether the business is still active, still in the same NACE code or the same size class. And if we combine that with our siloed approach or our siloed production of statistics, we get this. There is a sample design for every statistics. Like I said, it's independent. They are done independently of each other. And that means that we get multi-surveyed businesses. And the picture here is a real picture of an enterprise who sent this picture to Stats Netherlands some 20 years ago saying, well, I am willing to complete some questionnaires, but this is too much. So we have these what we call hotspots, and they get more than one questionnaire and more than once. I always show this picture when I'm talking about response burden to visualize response burden, what it actually is. So what are the implications for our design? I would say that we have a relationship with our businesses. It's not like in social surveys when we sample persons or households every 10 years, let's say. But it's ongoing. We have a recurring, ongoing relationship with our respondents. And for the moment, it's unbalanced. Like I said, like I try to picture to you, it's dedicated or it's imposed by us on businesses. Also, because of the siloed way of production, what you see is that the secondary sources that we use are used within the silos. And I think that we could use these data better across statistics to make the data available for a bureau as a whole. And also what I often hear is when it's about secondary data sources, well, there is no 100% match between the data that we want according to our definitions and how it is defined in the data file, and they come late. Well, maybe we can use modern estimation methods to come over this issue, and so we could still use the data, even though there is not a 100% match. This is not my expertise, but I would guess that there could be a way here. And also, I would say that we need to review our sample designs. They, like I said, they have been developed ages ago, and we use them still over and over again. There is no sample coordination across these statistics, so we could do better here, I think. And we could include the secondary data sources and new estimation methods in our designs and see how that can improve or reduce our primary data collection and our surveys. So that's what I very briefly wanted to say about the business population and sampling. Now about the business response process. How am I doing? Okay. So when you look at the business response process, what is happening within the business, the process there to complete a questionnaire can be complex and is also dynamic. The contact person and persons in the process can change. So we should not assume that when there is a new person or we should not assume that we need to deal with the same persons and that a new person knows what to do. I've seen within businesses that we have to do with a new contact person, but they were not instructed by their colleague on what to do, on how to complete a questionnaire. So they have to be trained again and learn the procedure. So this tells us that there is a difference between newly sampled businesses, new persons, and new contact persons because they have changed, and experienced respondents who know what to do. And we've seen that also, that the experienced persons, they know the drill, they know how to complete a questionnaire, they have set up a procedure, and they can do it easily. That's no problem. But with the new respondents, I think that's what we need to look at. So I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the business response process very quickly. So this is a simple process when there is one statistical unit, one observational unit, and one reporting unit. They are the same. And within the reporting unit, there is one respondent who has access to one data source with all the data that is needed to complete the questionnaire. So this is a very simple process. And this applies to, let's say, most of the small businesses. You could also look at this as a process that is happening within a household. Let's say you are sampling a household, it's the statistical unit, it's the observational unit. The household also reports on itself, and within the household, there is one person who reports all the data or completes a questionnaire. And then this can be more complicated when there is more data sources with one respondent, and even more complicated when there are more people involved in the completion process who need to check the data or retrieve the data from various data sources. And you can imagine that this can be even more complicated when there are more reporting units for the very large, big enterprises who make up one holding, let's say, and we get the data from the various parts of the holding, and we consolidate everything for one holding. And this can be, of course, we see this in various combinations. And then we also have to deal with time when data are available and when businesses have the time, or when the individual respondents have the time to do the task, to complete parts of the questionnaire. Now, when we look into what is happening for a particular respondent, I guess you may recognize this. This is the four-step model by Roger Tarango, developed in the mid-1980s for social surveys, the question completion process, comprehension, information retrieval, judgment, and reporting, but this also applies to respondents within businesses. And what we have seen from research is that, I already said it this morning, that for businesses, the workload is with step 2 and 3. That's what is the most burdensome steps for them. And this is based on research that has been done by Gustav Haraldsson and Jackie Jones. Gustav did a study and published that in 2018. And here you can see the various issues that they studied: unclear terms, wait for information, need for help, mismatch, complex computation, and unfamiliar response options. And they can be related to these 4 steps in the Tarango model. So this is what I hear from businesses. I have the data in my databases, but finding the right data, getting my colleagues to cooperate, and calculating the answers takes a lot of time. These are the most burdensome steps for them. This is the same issue. It's from a study by Gustav and Jackie in 2007. So when we combine this, I would say that when you look at the risks, where are the risks in our process, is that when there is more steps, there is an increase in the error. When it's more complicated, there is an increase in the error or in the risk. And when there is a mismatch between the organizational structure and the structure of the questionnaire, there is also an increase in the risk. This is for one questionnaire, but when we look at it for more questionnaires, then of course the risks may explode. And this is a summarizing model by Moit Sabavdas from 2010, where everything comes together. I thought I'd just show it to you, but this is a nice overview, putting everything in place. So if we now look at what kind of types of response processes do we have, I thought, and well, this was my latest idea, we could have 4 groups of respondents, saying businesses completing a questionnaire for a first time or being experienced, and then combine that with the four types of response processes. And we get these four groups. Yeah, so this is the groups that I think we should take into account when we design our survey. Okay. So how then can we, what do we know about survey participation? To get and to keep survey participation, I would say relevant factors are the decision to participate, as discussed by Tomaskovic-Davy already in 1994. And they identified three factors here: the authoritative factor, motivational, and ability factor. Do I have to do this? Do I want to do this? And am I able to do this? And we could ask ourselves, do we apply these three questions when we develop a communication strategy? Furthermore, businesses like to know upfront what is coming so that they can get prepared. And also what we know from research is consistent response behavior. So businesses that have responded before will very likely respond as well in the future. And that was found in a study by Davis and Pihama from Stats New Zealand in 2009, for instance. And like I said, changes in contact persons are a risk. So what are the implications? I think that when we are talking about new businesses, we should invest in the relationship with these businesses. And I would say that pre-field communication is more important than post-field reminding. So we should get them on board in the first place and not have them have the wrong behavior, which is non-responding, and then afterwards try to convert that to the correct behavior. For recurring experiences, businesses maintain the relationship, for instance, with the portal, monitor the contact person, have a large case unit in your organization. That's what we have, and use Paradata to tailor your strategy. And like I said, does your communication take the authoritative, motivational, and ability factors into account? I go over this now quickly. Yeah. So about questionnaire design, what do businesses want when we look at questionnaires? This is a list of what I found talking to businesses about what they would like to see in a questionnaire to help them to complete a questionnaire. For instance, they would like to have a non-linear completion functionality in the questionnaire so that they can skip and go back, top-down or bottom-up completion. Import, export of data. Also, they would like to have intelligence built into the questionnaire, but not the usual error messages, but in a more creative way. So I think that we should design our questionnaires structured around the business context and not based on how we would structure the questionnaire from our own structure. So what data businesses possibly have and can provide and where the data are. And I think we should also invest in the conceptualization. So going from the abstract concepts to the questionnaire in the operationalization. And this is where Diane Willemek also published some really relevant papers. We should make use of the functionalities of electronic questionnaires and not just copy the paper questionnaires, but make use of them in full. And here again, I would like to refer to Gustav Haraldson's work when he discusses designed dialogues as a basic for questionnaire design. So trying to get the respondent by hand and help them complete the questionnaire. But what I already said is that businesses invest in the completion process and they don't like changes when it comes to the completion process. and they like to be as efficient as possible. And also what we see nowadays is that more and more businesses use electronic systems, business intelligence systems for their own data. And now they tell us, well, I have the data in my own system. Why do I have to re-enter the data into the questionnaire? Can we not get the data automatically? So implications for our design should be that we tell businesses about changes in the pre-field as early as possible, and we should look at automated data collection. And maybe if we look at automated data collection, sampling will no longer be efficient for businesses, because once they have set up a system, then for them, they want to do that over and over again. So for them, sampling is no longer efficient. And maybe Derek, my colleague, will discuss that on Friday. Now, finally, coming to managing the fieldwork. And here I'm looking forward to Ewan's presentation tomorrow on applying active fieldwork strategy and using Paradata to monitor the fieldwork. I think that here we can also do better and see how businesses behave and act already early in the fieldwork when they are lagging behind. And I think that maybe here we could target first-time sample businesses, crucial businesses, and business respondents with deviating responding behavior. So why then are they deviating from what they have done before? Now, to conclude, if we could start all over again from scratch, I would say that we would not have silos anymore. We would fully utilize secondary data sources. We would have coordinated data collection designs, no sampling for automated data collection, but surveys still would be relevant. There would be still variables that we need to collect with surveys. And then to solve our fundamental projects, fundamental issues, I would say that we need to have a fully business-centric approach. So really look into what is happening within the business and adapt to their approach. And I think that we have to adapt to that, to them. It's not that they should have to adapt to us, but we should adapt to them. Of course, that means that we have to put money into this. This is not easy. This is not an easy solution. But we have to act first. We have to look at our own processes and then come up with fundamental changes in our way of working. Very recently, I've seen a paper from Eurostat also looking into that direction. And I'm looking forward to quite some presentations at this workshop that will touch on issues that I discussed. So thank you, and sorry for being over time. And finally, I would like to point you at next year's Business Data Collection Methodology workshop that will be held in Heerlen in June, which will be a next meeting where we all can meet. So thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Ger for a really insightful and informative presentation. We have run slightly over time. I know we started a few minutes late, but I think if there is further discussions, if we can have them maybe over teas and coffees, and also tomorrow there will be a small groups discussion where we'll be doing further talk on this. So Leanne will be chairing that, and Ger will be giving further insights there. So just to keep, I think, on top of time, I think we'll move on to the next session, which Johannes will be chairing. So thanks again to her.
Yeah, so I welcome you to this very interesting session on statistical units and business register. And the first presentation will be by Serena Megliardo, called An Innovative System for Enhancing Consistency in Multinational Enterprise Statistics. Quick introduction, she's working at EESW since 2001 at the Department of Economic Statistics. She has been responsible for several European projects, and since 2023, she has also been the national coordinator of MNENet. And yeah, she has headed the operational unit, statistical register of enterprise groups and publicly controlled units since 2013, and since 2023, she has been responsible for coordinating the initiative, coordination of information flows on multinational enterprises. And she's at the moment the co-coordinator of the EESW Task Force on Globalization. So yeah, a lot of expertise on this topic, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Johannes, to introduce me. Good morning, everyone. And in my presentation today, I want to to show the initial finding of the EESW Task Force on Globalization. That is a joint work with my colleagues that today there is not here. I want to thank also my colleagues. And our scope with this task force is to create an integrated data system of multinational enterprise groups with the scope to improve at national, but also at the European level, the consistency and coherence of data collects from different statistical domains that we have available in EESW for the most complex multinational enterprise. We know that globalization increases the complexity of business statistics, and National Statistical Institute are responsible for correctly capture and record these phenomena. Ensuring is very important, ensuring consistency across multiple statistical domains, ranging from statistical business register, short-term and structural term business statistics, trade and national account. The main points of this presentation, I'm going to start with a brief description of the work undertaken in EESW and Europe by the large case unit, that the units that have the responsibility to improve the consistency across domain. Then some words about the EESW Task Force Organization on Globalization, and then the first result achieved by the task force in the first year of the activity. The task force started its activity in April 2025, and we conclude in July 2025 the design phase. Instead, the implementation phase is now in progress. We conclude it in April 2026. Finally, the next step of the task force is some brief conclusion. Now, some word about the large case unit. Eurostat promote the development of large case unit in European and EFTA countries to monitor the activities of the complex large multinational enterprise groups. So this unit play a key role at national level, improving cross-domain coordination. And EESW, the large case unit, was established in 2017 within the EESW Directorate of Economic Statistics. And it was decided to adopt a decentralized organization model. This means that the large case unit support other statistical domains, help in knowledge sharing, in highlight the inconsistencies, but the large case unit, a difference of the other countries, not disseminate data, but the responsibility of correct the data is in charge of each domain. EVA started also introduce also the M&E network to link the work of large case unit in European countries, facilitating knowledge sharing, cooperation, harmonization in the team of multinational enterprise. So our task force, the scope of our task force is to support the activity of the large case unit. And the main effort was to integrate different sources in a unique virtualized environment. Different sourcing coming from different domains with different with data collected for different scope, and also identifying consistency across statistical domain, across variables, across timing, and through the construction of currency indicators, implemented also automated alert system and dashboard, making the system a practical and accessible tool for data analysis to facilitate data analysis. The organization, we decided to organize the task force in 3 work packages. The work package 1 is composed by the thematic expert, the main expert coming from the different domain involving globalization issues. And in charge of this would be the design of the system, the selection sourcing, variables, and also the design of a consistency indicator. The work package 2 is a mix of expert between a mix of thematic IT expert and acts as a bridge between work package 1 and 3 in metadata, in create metadata and in integration rules. And then the work page 3 that is the IT team and responsible for the implementation of the system. Now some aspect of the design phase, that is the first phase. The first step of this design phase is decide what to integrate, how to do this. We decide to collect information directly from each domains involved by a survey, internal survey, a domain data sheet, in which we map the main statistical sources, the main statistical variables, the indicator just used by each domain to check data, identify any critical issues, but the most important sheet is that which we ask to the domain to describe the initial desiderata on the structure of the integrated M&A information system. In the second step of the design phase, the work package 1 to starting to mapping the statistical sources, describe well all metadata on source variable, select the variable to introduce in the system, and define all rules for the reconciliation in discrepancies, in particular in reference period, the statistical unit. We decide to develop a system on the legal unit, but also information of at group level or at ent level, and some information at cow level introduces. And then we define all the rules for the microdata linkage. In this picture, I've shown the sources that we integrate, starting from the Asia Business Register of multinational enterprise groups, and then short-term and structural business statistics, the information coming from the European Group Register, EGR, information from trade, and so on. And in the first step, we design the consistency indicator. We decide to set 2 types of consistency indicator. The first set highlighting consistency in variables such as turnover or revenue collected by Istat through different survey with different scope, such as the domestic versus foreign turnover, monthly versus annual turnover. In the second set, we want to introduce some indicators to test the structure of multinational groups, in particular in terms of governance, because Eurostat asks to each domain statistics by global breakdowns. It is very important to reach the coherence by information that we have in business register, in AGR, and in FATS statistics. But our goals in the future is also to anticipate the consistency analysis that usually well done by after the dissemination process, in particular by national accounts, and our scope is to anticipate data analysis before the dissemination data to avoid the dissemination of data by different domain and by to disseminate different data on some variables. Now, in this slide, I want to show a first prototype of our system that is in progress. For example, the first indicator that we introduced was an indicator that compared the foreign turnover coming from the short-term statistics of industrial turnover versus the foreign turnover collected by trade statistics as a sum of export of goods and services. In the picture, we can see the light row in which at legal unit level we compare the two values for 2022. In this case, there is a little discrepancy over the two values. In the future, we want to use this system to highlight the main discrepancy, to select large enterprise groups to investigate with others analysis, with reading balance sheet or other sources. Now we pass to the implementation phase that is at the moment in progress. This will be concluded in April 2026. It was very difficult, the transition and extraction in the new environment, the extraction from native formats, storage location, data available in different formats, Oracle, SAS, Excel, and the data virtualization permit to integrate data from different sources, location, and format without replicating the data. And the data set are virtualized by creating virtual view that acts as real time. And the result is a faster access to all data, less replication and cost, a greater flexibility of this system. In addition, in this system there is a data catalog, a tool that enables the navigation of data and metadata, facilitating the consultation. And also the data catalog is enabled to display the data lineage for each variables or indicator, and tracing the complete life cycle of the data from the original source to the final output. Now in this in this slide, the main output achieved in the first year, for me, is very important knowledge, the action of knowledge sharing for between domains. We organized during the task force different training section. It's important to know all the aspects of the globalization to see the full picture. We map 12 statistical sources and design 9 current indicators. And also it's very important for anticipate the analysis of data to we design also a live group database for the largest 100 M&As. We link the information manually updated by our staff of profiling team and with information, live information coming from the business portal, the ESTAT business portal, and coming from short-term statistics. In this slide, the next step of our implementation plan, we plan to conclude the implementation of the indicator until December, and then in the next month of the year of the 2026 to develop the interface to now some brief conclusion. This system supports the large case unit to manage inconsistency by facilitating communication across domain. For me, it's very important this kind of communication, and it's very important to include in a unique virtualized environment data coming from different sources available in ESTAT, avoiding duplication in data exchange and avoiding also duplication in control checks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this very interesting talk. So yeah, I'm opening the floor for questions.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. Just curiosity, I was wondering if you can briefly highlight what are the key differences between these database and, as I give you an example, like cross-border investment by Moody's, right, which also collects data on multinational enterprises, or which type of information would be available that are not retrievable from cross-border investment, for example?
Actually, we link this information only on statistical source available in ESTAT, and in particular for SBS statistics, short-term trade. And in the futures, we hope that the project continue and also to introduce all the other sources. And in particular, sources coming from administrative data that some are just available in ESTAT, some are in progress to acquire, such as country by country report, in which we can try more information and so on. And in this moment, we develop indicator considering the needs expressed by the domain, and the indicator concern in particular some turnover, export, the occurrence of these variables.
Further questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Serena. I'm wondering, in terms of developing the metadata, in terms of developing the metadata as that foundational layer for the data catalog, obviously there's great insights that we can gain from doing that, but the process of actually building up that layer is quite difficult and challenging and lengthy. I was wondering, do you have any experience or insights on how you coordinated that?
If I understand, the answer is your metadata.
Yes, so the full complete life cycle view, the data lineage, obviously creating that foundation, harmonizing concepts, building up metadata. Did you have to do that?
This action was most very complicated, and in fact we foreseen the work package 2 that support work package 3, and also for work package 1 is very difficult to collect information from each domain. to describe each variables that are collected by different scope to align in the system. We decided to construct our system at legal unit level. So some considering the year which some sources are, we do a reconciliation of some sources such as the trade that are at EVA collect information by but numbers or short-term statistics that are different period of data collection, and see is the most hard work to add the data catalog of this system help in the future the analyst to the origin of the info, to go to the origin of each information.
Grazie. Thank you.
We still have time for one question or maybe two short questions.
Thank you, Serena. You mentioned in your presentation the role of the business statistical portal in your task force. Could you give some more information about this role? What kind of information is extracted from the business statistical portal?
Sì, ok. It's very important, the business portal in Istat, why collect information, live information directly by the enterprise. And in this system, we implement two type of system. One frozen system that link the information after the dissemination of data by each domain, and one live system for the firstly 100 groups that start from the business register enterprise groups, in particular of the action of the profiling team that update just in November available data of 2024 for largest groups. This information of the structure and on governance of large group are linked thanks to the portal with the main variables collected by the portal, such names or other information on event that are inserted in the portal directly by the enterprises. And then we collect also information turnover about short-term statistics. With this live system, we call live system, we want to try to anticipate, individuate some shock that can involve some multinational groups.
All right. Thank you again for this presentation and the fruitful discussion. Yeah, then I would like to hand over to Vilemati. So our next presentation will be by Vilemati Pilviö. I hope I pronounced this correctly. On Finland's solution to a national unique identifier for local units. He's a senior statistician at Statistics Finland, working in business statistics, where he is active since 14 years. Yeah, he's working in data collection as business architect and also with experience with statistical program and software development. And yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Johannes. Okay, we prepared this solution for a Finnish national identifier for local units, together with my colleague Heini Heinonen, who is sitting in the back there also. I'm very happy. Thank you for the opportunity to present our case here in front of you, who are establishment statistical experts. And it is very much a case of, I hope, to get a lot of feedback and discussion with you, your ideas on how this solution could be successful in Finland, but hopefully also you might get some ideas for your own national needs based on the work we've done in Finland. The contents of this presentation starts with a problem, finding a solution to it. We want to move away from surveys, establishment level surveys, towards using administrative data for making our establishment statistics. I'll speak a little bit about the big picture of registries in Finland, and I'll propose the Finnish solution to you on how we wish to solve this problem. The solution will be this establishment registry service channel. And these links, of course, links are really important. This links very closely with the tax authorities' Finnish incomes registry, from which we should be getting the administrative data. And then I'll try to outline also some of the anticipated benefits of this. So we have a plan. It's a work in progress, and hopefully we will get to the goal we're aiming for. We want to completely get rid of establishment surveys. That's the ultimate goal. We already have a source of administrative data, how we could do that. We also want a national unique identifier for establishments, and I'll explain a little why this is so important for us later. Then we also have been looking for the best registry for establishments in Finland. We identified one, and lucky for us, by law, that is Statistics Finland, who maintains this registry. We want to make that registry much more accessible nationally, and we want it to become the focal point for when referring to establishments, that they have this unique identifier, which is supplied by us. Of course, there's also the goal of maintaining our registry. We need some way that the data there is of high quality and is up to date, preferably using low resources, which is always a budget issue. Then we also have EU regulations and national requirements which affect our data collection. The Finnish government has a government-wide obligation to only ask once for information. So it's not only in Statistics Finland where we shouldn't ask twice our respondents the same question. The whole government should be following this. It's a relatively new move. Let's see how that is successful. We're also working on, for the businesses or customers, as we like to also call them, that there should be only one location for reporting information, not so that they have to report separately to the tax authority, separately to Statistics Finland, and separately to all the other entities, government entities involved. So that's a big ask, but we got to be greedy. A little bit about the big picture. Finland has been using registry-based data very successfully already for a long time. And I've tried in this diagram to identify what I call from the statistical perspective, some of the really important key registries. For social statistics, we really have things under control. We have dwellings, unique IDs, we have buildings, unique IDs, we have persons with social security numbers. Households have all unique identifiers. We know the families because we know where they live, so we can identify that that's one family. For enterprises, the situation is really good. They all have unique business identifiers. So nationally, we know which enterprise we're talking about. What we're lacking is establishments information. We don't have for establishments, we as yet do not have a unique identifier, a national unique identifier for establishments. And that's what we want to change now. And that's where this service that we're going public with will focus on. A little bit about the Finnish solution. It's maintaining the registry of establishments will be envisioned to happen through a service channel so that the representatives of legal units can maintain information about their establishments. Put this in perspective, about 80% of legal units have one establishment. So we're talking about a small minority where there are multiple establishments, but that then is the problem area, of course. And I think this is not only in Finland. Most countries face the same issue, how to handle these multi-establishment units. Now, we have information. Every enterprise in Finland has to fill in an income registry declaration once a month. So from that, we have who is employed there, how much they have worked, and where they have worked. We have an address for the establishment. And we've had this information for many years already, but we found it incredibly difficult to link the information in this registry with the statistical units that we have in Statistics Finland, because they only have a legal obligation to report an address. And this is what we want to change. We would like them to, in this income registry, to report the establishment ID, the unique identifier, so that we can link it with other data that we have. In step one, we have now been in discussion with the income registry that this establishment ID will be included in the income registry as a voluntary field at this stage. We are working on putting this service into place, and step two will be in a few years, most probably, to make this a compulsory field in the income registry. There's been a lot of benefit from these unique identifiers in other contexts, and we will also be working on soft marketing this solution for software developers, for example, accountants, that they will also use this establishment ID within their own software as their identifier. So there will not be a need for multiple unique identifiers. Everybody will use the same. In an ideal situation, when new establishment is set up, they can automatically connect to this service and get the unique identifier from it. And this also is important to mention, this has a broader perspective in the future of, let's say, the real-time economy, where we're speaking about e-wallets. Representation can at that stage then be attributed to an establishment level so that the owner of this establishment can make purchases, but not for a sister establishment. And it is also important to be able to link establishment level sales. By that I mean, very often we're just focused on one company selling to another company, but what we would like to do is know that this company's branch located in that region sold to another company establishment located in another region. So we have this region perspective from the establishment level unique identifier. We have a service in Finland which allows users to identify via a national service, Suomi-Fi identification service. So through this service, we know the user. It's a strong way to identify the user online. And the same Suomi-Fi allows representatives who have already identified themselves to receive tokens which give them official representation permissions, for example, to represent a company. So these will be the two main building blocks for this service channel, which will then allow them to edit their establishment level details. They'll be able to create, read, update, and delete local units in the registry. They can do it either using a user interface on the web or using an API functionality. And this is also for Statistics Finland a first, in the sense that end users will be able to edit our registry data without or directly, let's say, which is a bit scary. Let's see how that goes. The service is quite far along already in development, but it should be launched in 26. And of course, it's important to mention that we have EU grants co-funding for this project. The incomes registry, I already mentioned a few words about that, but we are now working to get in 2026 the voluntary field into the incomes registry. That's our goal. And in parallel, we will be working to finalize this service, to get it tested and running and make it a required field in the future. And a few words then about the anticipated benefits. So we get a lot of contacts from our customers who are asking for the local units. I, of course, then ask my colleagues, why are they asking for this? What are they doing with it? And I don't know yet the answer, but I have asked them to when they do give the establishment ID, to ask what they're using it for. So there is interest from the customer side for this unique identifier. If they do use this service, they will directly have the benefit of having not to answer our establishment survey. So we can see from the database that somebody has been using the service last year, so we won't include them in any surveys to answer the same questions. And of course, it's important for us that it diminishes our administrative burden as well, and it has a very clear quality improvement effect, because some of this registry data could be up to 3 years old in the worst case scenario. We don't ask every year for small establishments the same information. Slowly running out of time. What is important also is that this is not only an issue which is for benefit to Statistics Finland, but at the national level, there's also direct benefits from having this information, of having a unique identifier. And of course, the tax authority being number one, asking, why do you want us to do this? And we say, well, you have the direct benefit then that you will know in which region the establishment has worked, and it might have some tax incentives because other regions might have lower taxes than others, or these kind of benefits have already been identified. Okay, that's about it from my side. I pretty much used my time, and
Yeah, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And yeah, the floor is open for questions.
Shall I ask? I have just one question towards the end. You state that for those who have ID for the, it looked like so local units, establishments, that they won't take part in surveys anymore. Is that your position, or is it position of Statistics Finland, or?
I would say it's the position of Statistics Finland. It's important to understand that in the establishment survey at this stage, it's a very simple survey. We don't ask very many questions. We ask that the address is checked, we ask the number of employees, and we ask the NACE code.
It's not general establishment surveys, it's some specific survey that asks about.
Pretty much the other things we need to know at the establishment level, we already get from registry-based data, so we don't need to ask very big surveys. But there are a few items which we have to ask, and that's why it's such a small survey and really makes sense to get rid of.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a more technical question. How do you deal with changes in the structures, or if the owner changes of an establishment, or I don't know, some enterprise buys up this establishment? Do you change IDs, or do you keep them consistent over time?
Good question. Yes. Both the buyer and the seller have the opportunity to indicate that there's a transfer, not a seizure of an establishment, but a transfer of an establishment to another legal unit. But of course, it's a bit still, let's say, I'm a bit scared of the situation where a buyer says that I've bought 100 local units and it's not real data. So we cannot confirm the transfer until the seller has indicated that this has really happened also. In the worst case scenario, we might need to contact the legal units to verify this situation. But it's interesting. Where do you draw the line in trust between what the client can do and what makes sense for the registry?
Just to follow up on that, will then the identifier change, or do you still consider this to be the same establishment?
The identifier will not change. I think, if I remember, this is a difficult question, but there are 3 indicators for changing the establishment ID. One being that the address has really changed. The second being that their NACE activity has changed. And the third one, I think it was related to ownership, but don't quote me on that. So in our case, 2 of the 3 need to be true before we will change the establishment ID.
All right, we have time for one quick question, maybe.
Thank you. Very quick questions. Did you consider also the use of new technology, for example, artificial intelligence, LLMs, to integrate the work you describe as a complementary source for your activity?
Yeah. So the answer to this question, artificial intelligence is developing very quickly, but it was a few years back when we were trying to identify these local units based on the income registry addresses to link them to our unique identifiers. And we did use artificial intelligence there, but because the address can be written in so many ways, you can abbreviate certain parts or misspell something. So you have to have this confidence level to actually say that these two addresses are the same. It's a nightmare, I think, everywhere, not only in establishments. So we were at that time receiving about a 30% success rate, which is not good enough. And it's one way to go, and we have been actually doing linked tables, manually identifying, because there is a field there where you have to put an ID, but the problem is you can put any ID. It could be your own internal ID or heaven knows what ID. You can write anything in that field. So when there is a consistent ID being used by specific legal units, we will automatically link them, which does help in this. But of course, the long-term and let's say cleanest solution is to have this national unique identifier, which then also will benefit much more than just establishment statistics.
All right. Thanks again for the presentation and for the discussion. I'd suggest we hand over to Anna-Rita Mancini, who will give a presentation about the identification of kind of activity units within the Italian Statistical Business Register, summary of the methodology from the data reference year 2021 to 23. Anna-Rita is working at ESTAT Statistical Registers on Economic Units Department, and she is responsible for the initiative relating to the implementation of the methodology for identifying the kind of activity units in the registry system and coordinating the related information flows from survey and administrative sources. So, yeah, a quick introduction, and as soon as you're ready, I will hand over the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I will share with you some insight from the Italian experience in identifying kind of activity units, shorthand acronym CAUS, in the Italian Statistical Business Register. Okay. Sorry. Let me start with a bit of context. The CAU, as defined in the Council Regulation number 696 of 1993, groups all the parts of an enterprise that contribute to performing one specific activity at the class level. This regulation provides a basis for producing consistent and integrated European business statistics. Over time, the importance of CAU has increased, particularly with the European Business Statistics Regulation number 2152 of 2019, which made it mandatory to include CAUs in the national statistical business registers and to adopt CAU as an analysis unit in short-term statistic and program survey. Furthermore, the implementing regulation number 1197 of 2020 allowed each statistical institute to choose between two options for defining CAUs. The first is as a new distinct statistical unit into the register, and the second one is as an attribute of the end unit. In Italy, we have chosen the second option, that is to treat the cow as an attribute of the ant. So in our approach, the cow reflects the main and the secondary activities of the ant, each with the associated size measure based on turnover. Enterprises with no significant secondary activities are considered to be one cow corresponding with the main activity of the enterprise. The first assessment in the Statistical Business Register domain under the new EBS regulation was in 2023 for the reference year 2021, when 26 European member states and 3 EFTA countries had implemented the cow. Of these, 12 European member states and 1 EFTA country, Italy among them, implemented cow as an ant variable. Let me now move in the Italian operation method. Our process began in October 2018, and the first release of result referring to the 2021 year was completed in the 2023. The procedure consists in 4 main steps. The first one is the identification of a secondary activity for each legal unit. In this stage, we integrate data from both administrative and statistical sources to detect possible secondary activities within enterprises. The second one is the selection of relevant enterprises for analysis. Here, we develop the relevance measure that combines turnover and weights associated with the importance of different needs classes. All enterprises showing significant contribution were included in the process to define cows. The third step is the delineation of the cows. This is the core step where algorithms determine which secondary activities can be considered distinct as cows. Finally, the last stage is the ant reconciliation, where the defined cows are reconciled with the corresponding ant cluster in the Statistical Business Register, ensuring a coherent and non duplicative allocation of activities. The identification process relies on a set of administrative and statistical sources. As regards administrative sources, we include VAT declarations, ISA reliability indices, and business register of the Chamber of Commerce. Statistical sources include monthly survey on industrial turnover, the Structural Business Statistics Census Survey on large enterprises, Pradcom surveys, the local unit register, and from the reference year 2023, also monthly survey on turnover in service and monthly survey on retail sales. These last 2 short-term surveys were included just in the 2025 for the cows reported year 2023, since they had to be complied to EBS regulation and so disseminated data for cows started just for the first half of the 2024 year. By combining this data, we aim to maximize the detection of secondary activities in the legal unit. To manage this complexity of the identification of the cow, we focus on a subset of economically relevant legal unit. Specifically, we have defined a relevance measure formula that combines the legal unit turnover in each needs class with the relative weight of this class in the economy. Legal unit is considered relevant if its normalized relevance measure is greater than 1 or equal to 1. This step filters out small units, allowing us to focus on the most economically significant entities. For the reference year 2023, for instance, over 107,000 legal units were identified as relevant, and covering more than 62% of national turnover. For these relevant legal units, the definition of cows only occurs if the unit has at least one secondary activity and if these activities are significantly combining available information from the administrative and statistical sources. This process begins with a concordance check. We compare the main needs activity from the Statistical Business Register with data from direct surveys. If a unit has the same main activity in the register and at least one survey, the unit is considered concordant. Otherwise, it defines discordant and we make a manual check. For concordant units, we can apply automatic method. So the secondary activities for these units are validated as possible cow if they appear across multiple reliable sources. The source is consulted in order of priority, where priority is given to the statistical source and to the source with data on economic value. So, for example, we have at the first point of this priority list the monthly survey on industrial production, the monthly survey on turnover in service, and monthly survey on retail sales, followed by VAT declaration, SBS census survey on large company, and so on. For these eligible activities, we apply thresholds based on the ratio between the turnover of the all secondary activity and the total turnover of the legal unit derived from statistical business register. At this point, the concordant units are now reclassified based on this ratio. As we can see in this slide, the thresholds for identify cow depend both on the type of legal unit classified according to the consistency of the value of all the secondary activity of the unit in relation of its economic value and on the type of source from which the economic activity derives. It's important to note that if a secondary activity derives from a short-term survey with highest priority, and this activity is confirmed by at least one other source, it is always defined as a separate cow. While if an activity is identified by matching other source, or it is identified just from a single priority short-term survey, it is classified as separate cow depending on the consistent classification of the unit. For instance, for a consistent legal unit, a secondary activity derived just from a single short-term survey is classified as a separate cow if its turnover ratio accounts for at least 10% of the company's turnover. The same threshold is kept also for activity identified from the local unit register and confirmed by another source, while for the other sources, an eligible activity is classified as a cow if the turnover ratio is more than 20%. Instead, for a legal unit classified as a duplicate unit, that is when the turnover of its all eligible activities significantly exceed its turnover present in the register, the threshold is stricter, and vertically integrated activities are also eliminated. In fact, we suppose that the same amounts may have been recorded multiple times across sources. Finally, we have the negative legal unit, that is when the sum of the value of all secondary activities does not cover the overall company value. In this case, activities not included before in the previous concordance analysis are retrieved from Prodcom survey. Since the cow is considered as an attribute of the ant, the activities defined as a possible cow must be consistent with ant structure. This phase has two main steps. The first one is the definition of the ant rules, and the second one, the allocation of the cow in the ant. As regards the ant rules, check at first if the local unit activity exists in the ant cluster. If there is a match, the activity is kept. In addition, this first step ensures the exclusion of ancillary activities. The second step instead provides to reallocate the economic values of the identified cows to the ant level, proportionally to the turnover of each legal unit within the ant. So, in this point, we have to consider the relationship between the ant and the legal unit. In particular, we can have three types of relationship. The first one is a simple ant that is composed of one legal unit, and this type is the most common type in our register. We can have the complex ant that is composed of multiple legal units. And finally, we can have multiple ant where one legal unit belongs to more than one ant cluster. But there are very few cases, fortunately, for this type of ant. Since the cow is an attribute of the ant, we said that the economic value of the identified cows must be rescaled and allocated to the ant consolidated turnover. For simple ant, the ant inherits all the cows of the legal units. That's very simple. While for a complex ant, the allocation considers both the cow's weight within the legal units and the legal units' weight within the ant. Finally, for the more complex cases, the process is done manually by contacting the various survey referents and the company referent to ensure the correct attribution of the cows. Now let me summarize the key results during the 3-year implementation period. We have more than 110,000 legal units classified as relevant each year, for about 2.3% in the last year of the all units in the register, present in the register. This accounted for more than 60% of total turnover, demonstrating the economic importance of the subset we analyzed to detect cow. Regarding data source, we integrated as relevant units up to 91 legal units from STS survey with I guess priority, and nearly 29,000 Prodcom records in the most recent year. In the first table of this slide, we see that enterprise with multiple cows for the reference year 2023 are 214, with 494 cows. For the remaining units in the register, it is assumed that they constitute a single cow corresponding for their remaining activity. As regards the longitudinal aspect, we observed that maintaining the consistency of cows over time is challenging. In fact, enterprise may change their structure, cease secondary activities, or shift their main niche class. In fact, only 194 cows remained stable throughout all 3 years. In terms of sectoral distribution, the majority of identified cows are concentrated in manufacturing sector and wholesale and retail trade. To conclude, the process of identifying cows in the Italian Statistical Business Register is both complex and resource intensive. It requires extensive data integration, continuous methodological refinement, and close collaboration between Statistical Business Register experts and sectorial statisticians. So our future efforts will focus on 3 main priorities. The first one is improving the coverage of cows by integrating additional short-term statistics. The second one is enhancing collaboration with the STS domains to harmonize secondary activity detection. And finally, ensuring longitudinal consistency, which remains a significant challenge as enterprise evolve over time. Thank you for attention.
Yeah, thank you for this very interesting presentation. Unfortunately, we're a bit under time pressure, so lunchtime is nearing. However, I think for 1 or 2 short questions, we still have time. Yeah, so I open the floor for some quick questions. Everybody wants to go to lunch, it seems. Question.
I have a general question, and it actually applies to also the previous presentations in this session. But you won't be able to respond in 2 minutes. But generally, how do you, your work is of course very deep and profound, but how do the other NSIs would benefit from your work? What is it, what kind of message can you give to other NSIs, what to do in order to, I mean, how to use your experiences in their own work? Do you have any brief summary about that?
Do you know if the other country know what Italy made. What
I
did
meant
ask?
how your experience is in your work. I mean, you and your colleagues have been working on this kind of activity unit issue for a couple of years at least, probably. So what are your main messages to the other NSIs? What can they benefit by from your experience?
Our experience, but I don't know, because the last year in the working group of the business register, some country present their process, but Italy don't present any any process. So I don't know if the other country know how we detect the cow. Next question.
About large-scale unit, there is the M&E network in which we discuss this topic, and also there is a consortium from different countries that just implement this system, and gives some rule. And this, also the consortium write guidelines for help the other countries to develop the system.
I can also say just a short few words. We've spent this morning talking about response burden. We've talked about refining surveys. Maybe the point which I would like to give over to you to consider is where you want to focus your attention, and do you actually want to concentrate on what most probably will be in the long term something which is more important, addressing administrative data sources, and also maybe just a heads up on taxonomy-based reporting, which in the future might make survey forms quite different, if even needed, than what they are today.
Yeah, thank you again for all the presenters. And now I'm handing over to Gianpaola.
Okay, I guess it's lunchtime now. So we can go to the next room, the one where we had the coffee break. So everything is ready. So you're welcome to start lunch. See you in, I think, in 1 hour's time at 2:10. 1 hour from now.